Hey, Mighty Warriors, this is Pastor Alan here with Pastor Reno. Starting what we're going to call Mighty Warrior Conversations, where over these next few weeks, we're just going to have some conversations, whether it's talking a little about what's kind of taking place in the world and our response as a church, as a youth group to what's taking place. So I invited Pastor Reno to come here today and just have a little conversation about what's happening. So it's as you guys know, this is just crazy what's happening. You know, we're experiencing something like never before. Reno, did you ever think you would experience something like this in your lifetime?
No, it feels like a movie plot, right? Like something that you would have seen in a movie and, kind of say, maybe that could happen. But to actually be living in something like this, it's pretty wild right now.
Yeah, it's something I never thought that I would experience, and I think some of the more surprising things is just how quickly it all came to be. You know, a few weeks ago, even as little as like 2 weeks ago, we were living life with kind of like no, like as if nothing was happening, nothing was kind of happening or changing, and then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, here we are, and we're people are having to quarantine themselves. We're taking all these measures as a community to make sure that this doesn't continue to spread. And it's crazy how quickly things changed.
Yeah, it's quick and it's wide. So like, there's not anyone that's not affected, right? So schools are canceled right now. People's graduations and proms and people working now from home and being homeschooled and the elderly having to be extra cautious in everything they do. So it's just like it happened so quick and it's really touched everyone and no one, even the elderly who have gone through things in this world like wars in the past or economic breakdowns or even things like 9/11 or whatever, we can honestly sit here today, no one has gone through what we're going through right now.
Absolutely. So just wanted to quickly touch base and explain a little bit for those who maybe are a little unaware or maybe you're just not sure of what's happening, kind of what's taking place. Give you a little bit of a high level just intro to what's kind of happening in our world for those if you've maybe been living under a rock or maybe just haven't been listening to different news outlets of what's taking place. So right now, the world is experiencing, I guess we could say, a global pandemic where there is a spread of a disease known as its official term, I think it's COVID-19, but commonly referred to as the coronavirus. It's a respiratory illness that is spreading from person to person, and it's not just limited to certain countries. It's at this point, it's basically globally. There's no limit to who's experiencing what's going on. So coronavirus spreading around from people to people. The CDC is saying that it's mainly spreading through close contact with another within 6 feet of being in contact with somebody who is infected through respiratory, I guess, droplets. So that's basically coughing or sneezing. So that's why we're getting a lot of guidance. Maybe you've heard of a lot of guidance from our government, from the CDC, of what's taking place as far as this whole idea of social distancing, where we are the government's kind of saying, hey, we all kind of need to stay away from each other because how this disease is passed is mainly through physical contact. It is through physical contact and being too close to with somebody who is infected. So how has this whole social distancing been experienced for you? Like how you been doing?
Yeah, I think this is so for gamers and introverts, this is our life, right? For extroverts, this is like, wow, what do we do? But it's crazy because I think in my mind, sometimes it's like, man, just stay home, right? And it's like that sounds good, and it's good for maybe a day or two, but then you miss the human element of being around other people, You also have the element of the people in your immediate circle, whether it's your family, your brothers, your sisters, and things. And when you're in a closed environment for an elongated time, people get on your nerves. Things happen. I got two little girls, and we're already just a few days in, and they're already getting on each other. And so there's a lot of stuff that happens with it. But the recommendation for the CDC, we've got to try our best to stop the spread of this, because, like you said, that contact is what really spreads it, and that's what we're trying to stop. Stop the spread of it being so massive in our country.
Yeah, it has been interesting. I'm the type of person who I do love to be at home, but Jasmine, wife, she likes to be out. She likes to experience nature and be outside, feel the sun on her face, and it's been challenging for the both of us too, though, in different ways. This whole social distancing thing. So, but that's been the recommendation from the CDC, that we kind of got to stay away from each other for a little bit. Other things that they have been recommending to help slow the spread has been to really avoid coming into contact with people who may be sick. Avoid as much as you can touching your eyes, your nose, your mouth with unwashed hands, and to wash your hands as often as you can with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, using alcohol-based hand sanitizers that contain at least 60% alcohol if you don't have soap and water, but just trying to stay as clean as possible. That's going to help really fight the disease and help you ensure that you stay safe. So continue to do that. We currently, as we're recording this today, there hasn't been any updates as far as what Florida may be doing specifically to slow this down. Other states have issued shelter in place where you are only allowed to go out for mandatory or essential things. So right now that hasn't been communicated to us yet, but maybe by the time you watch this, that may be the new reality. So just keep an eye out to what different news outlets, local news outlets to as to what they're saying as well. But yeah, I mean it's crazy. But wash your hands. I think throughout all this, I've kind of noticed a little bit about how bad my hygiene practices were a little bit before this. Now, I never washed my hands the way I do. I never kind of stayed clean, paid attention to maybe those who were sick around me or anything like that. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm really scared to kind of cough in public right now. I'm sure it's
definitely. There's this thing, coughing or sneezing in public, everyone turns and looks at you. But it's just our current reality right now. But to go along with that social distancing, I think we got to be wise. We got to continue to practice and do the things that we have to do. But the beautiful reality that we live in is we also have the gift of technology, so we can still stay connected, like what
Absolutely.
we're doing right here. You have social networking, the social media, so you can still stay connected. You can get news right at your fingertips. Just to think 15, 20 years ago, that shelter in place, whether it's coming or not, that would have really meant just you being home and no communication other than a phone call. But now we have other means to do that. And so that's an awesome thing that we have, that we hope to encourage you to, keep your social distancing, to be safe, but that doesn't mean to lock everyone out,
Absolutely.
Still connect with people, because that's an important human element that we all need.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's really important. How, like you said, I mean, technology for how we can experience it today is really can be something that still gives us that element. Because right now, we I don't know about you, but I definitely miss that. I definitely miss coming here on Wednesdays, coming as a church community to our place of worship and seeing people that I see every week, and not seeing them now is it's hard. But we're luckily blessed with with that technology to be able to still communicate and talk with one another. So continue to use it for good, for that purpose in this time. So I want to direct you guys though, if you may have any questions or you still have any kind of concerns about, man, what should I be doing to protect myself? What should I be doing, what should we be doing as a family to keep ourselves safe? There are plenty of resources online on the CDC's website. Feel free to go and look and stay informed for yourself because it's important to know what you need to be doing to keep yourself safe. So I want to transition to a quick time of I guess just kind of talking a little bit about how this is going to change how we're going to be doing church here at Bethel for the next few weeks. So Reno, if you don't mind, if you could just talk a little bit about how our next few weeks are kind of look a little bit different than maybe we're accustomed to.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few things. One, we recognize that the method in which we've normally done church is going to change, but the function of church remains the same, right? So the function of church is in the building. It's not a place that has a sign. Church is a people. And so the function of the church is to ultimately glorify God, to gather together, to lift his name, to grow together. And we do that, those things by worshiping together through music and song. We do that by hearing a message or a teaching from a pastor or a leader. And so those things are still going to happen, although the method changes. And we've been used to our entire life, or however long you've come to church, coming to a physical location, having the structure of a service or a Bible study, First Friday or Wednesday night, and having that sort of structured time. And so things change. And so with the government's recommendation, we're going to, over the next few weeks, not be meeting physically here in the building, but we're still going to be a church. We're still going to worship, and that's going to take place online and digitally. Like I said earlier, technology is a gift to us in this moment, and so Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and all these other things, we're going to be pushing out ways that we can be the church through worship, through growing in messages or Bible studies, even things like this that we're doing, just having a conversation and connecting. These are the things that we're going to do. And then what we recommend is that you do them at your leisure, yes, but you could also do them together as a family or even with other people and friends. There's so much tools out there that although we aren't together physically, we can still be together. And so just look out for all those things on all social media platforms, and connect with your family, your parents, your siblings, your friends, and continue to be the church. So method changes, but function doesn't.
Yeah, I think that's a really important piece to kind of touch on, because I know for myself, like we can get so used to experiencing church a certain way, right? Coming here on Wednesday and on Sunday, receiving worship, partaking in worship, listening to a message, and then leaving, and then assuming that, like, all right, like that's the only way that I'm going to do church with my community, do church with the people that I care about. But in reality, it's not like that. We can continue to do church in so many different ways, continue to grow together, continue to do life together. And I think that's one of the things that I'm actually looking forward to diving into a little bit, is how we can continue to have this community, have this idea of togetherness, but through a different method, So I'm really excited. Like Pastor Reinaldo saying, keep an eye out for, I guess we would say, our YouTube pages and our social media pages that are going to be kind of posting different updates, different videos, different messages, worship that we're going to be releasing in the next upcoming weeks. So that way we can continue to do what we've always been doing. We're not going to stop what we've been doing. There's nothing stopped. Nothing is changed. The only thing that's changed is how we're gonna receive these different things. But nothing's changed as far as who we are and what we do. And only maybe just a little bit about how we do it. So that's awesome. I'm really excited. And just to kind of close our time together, I want to just talk a little bit about how we as Christians can respond a little bit to what's kind of taking place. I think that in moments like this, I think that it can cause a reckoning within a Christian, a kind of like a fork in the road moment, if I could say, as far as and it challenges moments like this really challenge our faith. You know, it's scary to think about what's happening, what's taking place, and I think that these moments can really be used to strengthen our faith, to push us towards Jesus, or maybe push us a little bit away. You know, I think we see in the Bible constantly, right, when different people are reach this kind of fork in the road, and there's different stories of people going one way and people going the other way. But can you talk a little about maybe about just how moments like this, I guess you could say, like how they challenge us as believers, how they can either really kind of push us towards Jesus or maybe push us a little bit away from Jesus.
Yeah, there's so many things to go down, but the important thing is to understand who Jesus is and then who we are in Christ. Because if we have an idea of Jesus that if bad things happen, then he isn't in control or isn't real, then it really shakes us when bad things happen. But if we know who he is, regardless of what's happening, it helps us. The other thing is knowing who we are in Christ. And so part of that is not ignoring emotions or what you're feeling, but kind of taking those and laying them on Jesus. And so being fearful in this time isn't necessarily bad or sinful, right? Lament in this time isn't bad, so all these things, but it's taking that and understanding, okay, I'm fearful, I don't know what's happening, I'm a little worried, but running to Jesus, like you said, with those things, not saying, well, I'm not supposed to feel this, or I'm not supposed to be in this type of mood, but taking them to Jesus. And so that's a big thing. And like you said, all throughout the Bible, we see it over and over again. What are we going to do in moments of crisis? The Bible is filled really with people in moments of crisis. And the reason they become the Bible heroes that we hear about and learn about in Sunday school and in children's church and in youth group and in various outlets of Bible studies is because they trusted in God and overcame not in the way that they thought, but in God and in Christ. And so that's what we have to do. And so the encouragement is definitely, like you said, to take it and make it push you towards Jesus, not away from him.
Yeah, to me, one of the stories in the Bible that always sticks out to me as far as this fork in the road moment, right, where you could go one way or the other way, and it's kind of fitting, I guess, kind of as we approach Easter season, the Holy Week, is the story of the two criminals on the cross that are crucified alongside Jesus. We see two criminals make two distinctly different choices. One who mocks Jesus in a way. He says, God, hey, if you really are the Christ, like, save us and save yourself. And it wasn't really done in this reverent way. It was more of a mocking tone. But then we have the other criminal who I guess you could say reprimands the other criminal for saying what he said and speaking this thing about Jesus, saying, hey, like, if we are punished for what we really did, but Jesus did nothing wrong, and approaching Jesus and saying, Jesus, remember me when you go to your kingdom. And Jesus says, truly, truly, I say to you today, you will be with me in paradise. And I love this, I guess you could say, the two different choices that these two men made, faced with difficult circumstances, faced with a difficult moment, in suffering, in pain, questioning what's going to happen next, all these different things, and two different responses. One to where that person runs away from Jesus, mocks Jesus, turns away from Jesus, and another one who runs towards Jesus. And I think that, like what you said, these moments, these difficult moments, yes, I imagine that criminal was fearful, was scared, wasn't sure what was going to happen, what was going to come next, but he still went to Jesus with that. He still went to God or went to Jesus with what was taking place, what was happening, with his fear, with all his feelings inside, and with faith said, Jesus, remember me when you go into your kingdom. And these moments should push us towards that. I wanted to quickly ask you, I know we kind of talked a little bit about, you just kind of mentioned it, but how do these, to you, how do we reconcile these moments? How can we see Jesus in these difficulties? How do we still think that, how do we can still see Jesus moving? How do we believe that, how can we reconcile that inside of us? Like, hey, despite all that's happening, Jesus is still seated on the throne. Jesus is still moving. Jesus is still working, despite seeing all these bad things happening around us.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's a great conversation topic. I'll point to two things. One, Jesus's most victorious moment on this earth came through death. So there is no resurrection if there's no death. And so bad things aren't necessarily to prove Jesus' lack of power or that Jesus isn't God or that God isn't in control. As a matter of fact, if you look at Scripture, they often prove the opposite. That if you see through the bad things, you see God is actually in control. We just don't know the whole story. We don't have the whole picture. We don't know all the answers. So you look at Jesus' life. The biggest thing that ever happens is through death. You can't rise from the dead if you're not dead, right? And so Jesus is the resurrection. The second thing is, in the book of Acts, is the birth of the church. And so this is all the believers that believe that Jesus rose from the dead and he's God, and their life isn't, all wonderful all the time. They go through a lot of persecution. They get mocked. They get made fun of. They get persecuted. All these things happen. And it's not to say that specifically those things are going to happen to all of us, but it is to say that just because you believe in Jesus doesn't mean the promise is always everything's good, right? And I think sometimes that's what we have a shaky theology on, where we think, Jesus, I'm trying to love you, I'm trying to be, read my Bible, I'm trying to pray, and bad things happen, and why it shouldn't happen, and that's really not biblical. And so we've got to reshift and reshape our thoughts. So that, like you said, the criminals on the cross, it's not that Jesus saved one over the other physically. He wasn't like, all right, now you come off the cross and you stay. They both ended up dying. But the promise was death isn't the end if you believe in Jesus. So that's just the promises we got to hold on to. That's why the first thing is understanding who he is, because if we understand who he is, then the other things don't quite match who he is. And so that's always the foundation.
Absolutely. So I guess to something to leave you guys with, our time today as we kind of come to a close is just remember who God is. Remember the God that we serve, who he is. And I think in moments like this, we tend to kind of place our hope, place our faith, place our what we truly, our belief in the things that are kind of physical around us, whether that's what doctors are saying, what the government's saying. And that's not to say that we shouldn't pay attention, that we shouldn't look to them for guidance, but we should ultimately remember and ultimately recognize the truth that we serve the God who created the heavens and the earth, who is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, who this disease bows down to, and that if we place our hope in him, place our trust in him, look to him, have this difficult moment, this challenging time, push us towards him, how that will help us reconcile a little bit with what's happening and give us a little bit of peace, knowing that, man, you know what, like, we serve a God who's in control, who's nothing has happened without him knowing. and who is the author of life, and the God that we can just trust in, knowing that He has our best interests at hand, and that He will, that our hope in Him won't be forsaken. Our hope in Him won't be a false hope, but it's a true hope that we can have. So I thank you, Pastor Reno, for coming with us today for a few moments to speak a little bit about what's happening. Mighty Warriors, keep an eye out on our social media pages, at Mighty Warriors, on our YouTube page, for more updates, for more conversations like this, for more studies that we're going to be putting out there for these next few weeks as we continue to navigate this together, as we continue to do life together, do church together, grow together as a youth group. So just keep an eye out. It was really nice talking to you guys. I hope to see you guys soon. Take care. Any questions, you feel free to reach out to us at Mighty Warriors on Instagram, and we can even look to address some of those questions on future videos, all right? Take care, guys.